Maricela Johnson stood at the entrance of the Grand Meridian Hotel, a towering structure of shimmering glass and polished stone that had come to symbolize the pinnacle of luxury in the city. The lobby buzzed with energy, guests mingled with staff in a choreography of high society etiquette and quiet power. Maricela, whose name had become synonymous with fierce determination and unyielding excellence, had always dreamed of constructing an establishment that was a testament not only to her business acumen but also to her indomitable spirit. The Grand Meridian was that dream materialized and built brick by brick, each stone laid with the sweat of ambition and the heritage of overcoming adversity. Maricela began her day with the quiet satisfaction of knowing that every detail, from the hand-carved marble floors to the custom-designed chandeliers, had been meticulously curated. However, nothing could have prepared her for the unnerving series of events that would soon unfold. As the clock's hands inched closer to noon, a peculiar disturbance rippled through the pristine corridors of the Grand Meridian, a disturbance that would force Maricela to confront not only closed doors but also the prejudices lurking beneath the surface. Earlier that morning, an early reservation in the hotel's VIP suite had been made under an unfamiliar name. Maricela had personally overseen the reservation protocol, ensuring that the guest would receive nothing short of top-tier treatment. However, when the receptionist in the ornate front desk area called out the guest's name, the ensuing reaction was not one of welcome but an unmistakable flash of uncertainty. The guest, a tall and sharply dressed gentleman, cast disapproving glances at the opulent surroundings. His brow furrowed, and his tone hardened as he inquired about the room. The receptionist, following protocol, informed him about the suite's designated amenities and privileges, but her voice wavered ever so slightly, betraying her unease. Maricela had been watching from behind a far wall, her gaze narrowing as she absorbed every detail. There was something disturbingly familiar in the man's demeanor, the air of entitlement, the shock when he realized that the hotel had been helmed by a black woman. In that moment, Maricela recalled the long-forgotten whispers of discrimination that had once haunted her childhood neighborhoods, where success often met with suspicion and overt prejudice. It was a past she had fought hard to leave behind, yet it clung to the present like a stubborn stain. Summoning all the poise and authority that complemented her reputation, Maricela intervened. She approached the scene with measured steps that exuded both confidence and empathy. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice silken with resolve as she introduced herself to the uneasy guest. "I'm Maricela Johnson, the CEO and owner of the Grand Meridian Hotel. How may I be of assistance?" The man's eyes flicked between her face and the lavish suite behind her, an internal conflict playing visible to everyone in the room. His words were laced with unspoken judgment, but he insisted on confirming his reservation by showing his confirmation details, a digital certificate on his sleek tablet that sank deep into his determined hands. All signs pointed to the fact that he was an established VIP guest from a prominent business conglomerate, a conglomerate that had built its fortunes on clout and exclusivity. Maricela extended a courteous smile, yet inside, her heart throbbed with a mix of indignation and resolve. "I apologize for any misunderstanding," she began, maintaining an even tone that masked the raging pride beneath her calm exterior. "Allow me to verify your details." With a few swift keystrokes on the tablet she kept in her designer clutch, she accessed the hotel's reservation system. The confirmation details aligned perfectly, and it became apparent that the protocol had been correctly followed. Nonetheless, an instinct honed by years of overcoming adversity told her that not everything was as it seemed. The man, whose name was revealed to be Harold Sinclair, hesitated as Maricela quickly concluded the verification. A moment of palpable silence hung in the air, the tension was so thick that the ambient hum of conversation in the lobby momentarily hushed into an expectant lull. With the system confirmation in front of her, Maricela turned back to Sinclair. "Mr. Sinclair, I see your reservation has been properly made." Yet her tone subtly conveyed that she would tolerate no further indignities in her domain. Sinclair's eyes narrowed further, his features twisting in a mix of hurt pride and resistance. "If you think I am here to be questioned by someone like you," he sneered, his voice a cocktail of resentment and disbelief. "I assure you that my expectations are of the highest order." His tone was laced with a cold arrogance that threatened to unravel the otherwise seamless fabric of elite hospitality. Before anyone could react, Maricela raised her hand slightly, commanding the attention of nearby staff. "Mr. Sinclair, I must kindly remind you that every guest in this establishment, regardless of their background or affiliation, is to be treated with utmost respect." Her words were calm, each syllable a carefully placed brick reinforcing the edifice of fairness and inclusion that the Grand Meridian prided itself on. The staff, well trained in both discretion and responsiveness, moved to ensure that the situation would not escalate. Sinclair's face contorted, a ripple of discontent spreading across his features. The confrontation, however, was about more than just a single moment of unprofessional behavior. It stirred memories from Maricela's past. The countless times she had faced closed doors, the stares that tried to belittle her achievements, and the smug dismissal that came from those who believed that success was a privilege exclusive to certain racial or social factions. But today was different. Today, she was not just the CEO of a great hotel, she was the embodiment of change, the living proof that excellence could emerge from even the most oppressed backgrounds. With that realization, a quiet determination set into her tone and posture. "I understand this must be an oversight in your expectations, Mr. Sinclair." Her voice was still soft and measured, yet underneath, it carried the steel resolve of a woman who had long been in the trenches of every battle on her journey to the top. "It is my responsibility to ensure that every element of your stay exceeds expectations. Therefore, if there is any issue with the suite or its amenities, I will personally oversee that it is rectified immediately." She gestured gracefully toward the suite, as if inviting Sinclair to witness the luxury for himself. The grand door, a masterpiece of craftsmanship with intricate designs inlaid with gold, slowly opened, revealing an interior that radiated both modern elegance and timeless class. Yet as Sinclair stepped in, the subtle, icy tension between him and Maricela grew, each measure a reminder of the gulf that still separated their beliefs and statuses. Inside the suite, a stunning panorama of the city's skyline awaited, a juxtaposition of sprawling urban sprawl and the tranquil promise of a well-woven narrative of dreams. Sinclair's skeptical eyes darted across the room, the tasteful blend of contemporary art and vintage accents, the warm lighting that softened the grandeur, and the quiet hum of innovation hidden behind every detail left him visibly unsettled. He was no stranger to luxury, but here, in this space that was a manifestation of Maricela's own battles and triumphs, he saw a reflection of something more profound, a defiance that mocked the very concept of his own entitlement. The confrontation deepened as weeks passed. Sinclair's initial resistance transformed into a quiet, simmering detachment that bled into his interactions with the hotel staff. His departure from the suite was marked by a curt nod to the hotel's concierge, a gesture so brief and dismissive that it spoke volumes about his growing contempt for a system he had assumed would always adhere to his rigid expectations of class and race. News of the altercation spread swiftly, carried on the wings of social media and word of mouth. Within a matter of days, headlines began to take on the narrative of the black CEO who had boldly reclaimed her space in the face of prejudice, an act of quiet revolution that resonated with many who had long faced similar barriers. As the days morphed into a fervor of public conversation, Maricela found herself thrust into a role that she had never explicitly sought, a symbolic beacon of change. Invitations to television interviews, talk shows, and panel discussions flooded in, each one urging her to tell the story of that brief yet consequential encounter. In every interview, Maricela was careful to strike a balance between vulnerability and strength. "This is not about any one person," she would say, her gaze steady and unwavering. "It's about ensuring that every guest who steps into the Grand Meridian feels valued and respected. Prejudice, in any form, has no place here." At first, the hotel's management struggled with the media attention. Some board members, fearful of damaging the establishment's esteemed reputation, attempted to downplay the events or even suggested that the incident had been blown out of proportion. Yet Maricella's unwavering dedication to clear the fog of discrimination left no room for ambiguity. She implemented comprehensive staff training programs, held open forums for guests, and instituted strict guidelines to ensure that the values of inclusiveness and respect were ingrained in every corner of the hotel's operation. Her swift, effective measures not only silenced many of the vocal critics but also solidified the Grand Meridian as a bastion of progressive luxury. Between heated boardroom meetings and the soft glow of nightly media interviews, Maricella's personal life found itself thrown into sharp relief. Despite the constant whirlwind of responsibilities, she always found solace in the quiet moments of reflection at her penthouse suite, a space that overlooked the very hotel she had built. It was there, among the soft hum of the city and the gentle flicker of candlelight, that she allowed herself to revisit the memories that had ignited her journey. Childhood recollections of a time when narrow-minded comments were casually tossed around, of family dinners steeped in cautious hope and unspoken strength, would re-emerge. These memories, bittersweet yet invigorating, reminded her that her success was not solely measured by the grandeur of her hotels or the accolades of the media, but by the resilient spirit that had long carried her through every hurdle. One fateful evening, as autumn winds swept across the city and the Grand Meridian glowed against the twilight, an elegantly dressed visitor arrived at the hotel's entrance. This visitor, a mysterious yet impeccably charismatic man named Leonard Brooks, possessed an aura of challenge and intrigue. Leonard was not a typical hotel guest. Instead, he was a renowned consultant whose effortless charm had earned him commendations in circles that spanned far beyond Fortune 500 boardrooms. His first interaction with Maricela was marked by a subtle probing of her ethics and vision for the future of hospitality. "Miss Johnson," he said in a voice as smooth as aged Scotch, "your letters and statements have been making quite the impression. Tell me, what is it that drives you to uphold such unwavering ideals amid a world that often rewards expediency over principle?" Maricela regarded him with a measured smile, a smile that hinted at the untold depth of experience behind her eyes. "The answer is simple, Mr. Brooks," she replied. "I believe in a vision where excellence and inclusivity coalesce, where every person, regardless of their background, deserves to be a part of this journey. The Grand Meridian was built with this very philosophy in mind, a philosophy that transcends conventional boundaries and leads us all toward a future built on mutual respect and shared ambition." Leonard nodded thoughtfully, his eyes reflecting a spark of genuine approval. In his presence, Maricela was reminded that the challenge of paving new paths required not only relentless vigilance but also the sincerity of human connection. Their meeting marked the beginning of a relationship that blended professional judgment with a personal understanding, a combination that would soon prove pivotal in refining the hotel's policies and public relations strategy. As months turned into a veritable season of transformation within the Grand Meridian, word of Maricela's resolute stand against discrimination resonated with an ever-growing audience beyond the local fold. Prominent figures in the world of business and philanthropy began reaching out to collaborate on projects that aimed to dismantle outdated hierarchies and promote diversity and inclusion. A high-powered fundraiser was organized at the hotel, one that brought together leaders from various industries, all united by the cause of social reform. Under the gentle glow of starlight, as laughter and the clink of champagne glasses filled the grand ballroom, Maricela took to the podium. The splendor of the evening was contrasted by her earnest message, one that would echo far beyond the gilded walls of the Grand Meridian. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her tone sincere and unwavering, "tonight isn't just a celebration of success, it's a celebration of progress. We are here to honor the relentless pursuit of equality and to recognize that each of us plays a vital role in shaping a future free from prejudice. This hotel stands as a testament to what can happen when we choose to embrace diversity, when we choose to see value in every individual. I invite each of you to join me on this journey, a journey where progress, compassion, and integrity define our legacy." The words, imbued with the promise of a better tomorrow, resonated deeply with the assembled crowd. Murmurs of agreement and spontaneous applause rippled through the audience, affirming that change had indeed taken root at the Grand Meridian. Yet, whenever Maricela engaged in public events or lofty speeches, a reminder of the old wounds sometimes lay hidden in the form of unexpected setbacks. It was during one particularly busy winter weekend that a group of influential investors arrived at the hotel, intent on discussing a potential expansion project. Among them was an individual with a notorious reputation, a man whose background was steeped in controversy and whose opinions had often drawn scorn from progressive circles. His name was Gerald Whitmore, a titan of industry who had made his fortune in sectors that anointed exclusivity and traditional business practices as the sole path to success. Whitmore's presence was enough to cast a long shadow of skepticism over any event, but in the polished atmosphere of the Grand Meridian, he was treated with the decorum befitting any high-profile guest. However, when a minor issue with his room ignited an altercation reminiscent of the earlier incident with Sinclair, tensions escalated rapidly. Maricela was informed of the commotion by an attendant who looked visibly rattled. Wasting no time, she strode down the corridor, her heels echoing in time with the determined beats of her heart. Inside Gerald Whitmore's suite, voices were raised, and the conversation teetered dangerously on the brink of professional decorum. Whitmore, his face flushed with indignation, insisted that his room be changed immediately. "I have been promised nothing less than perfection," he bellowed, his voice carrying a mixture of entitlement and simmering fury. Maricela entered the room, her presence alone commanding silence. "Mr. Whitmore," she stated, her tone diplomatic yet unequivocal, "I assure you that we take all guest concerns very seriously. I am personally overseeing this matter." Her calm words formed a barrier against his volatile demands. Whitmore's eyes, however, betrayed his inner conflict and a deep-seated inability to reconcile with the new order he perceived around him. An unspoken power dynamic played out in that charged moment. Maricela could see the hours of mounting pressure in Whitmore's stance, a culmination of a lifetime that had taught him to equate power with privilege and inviolability. But Maricela had long since rejected such notions. Instead, she offered an alternative, a heartfelt proposal to convert his discontent into an opportunity for constructive change. "Would you be open to discussing how we can improve your experience here?" she asked, her words gentle enough to disarm even the fiercest of critics. Whitmore, caught off guard by her sincere approach, hesitated, his posture softening as a flicker of reluctant understanding passed through his eyes. In the ensuing days, the Grand Meridian became a microcosm of broader societal debates, a place where old prejudices collided with new perspectives, where the personal and the political intertwined in unexpected ways. Maricela found herself engaged in long, sometimes draining, dialogues with those who clung to antiquated beliefs, those who felt threatened by the ease with which change now swept through the corridors of power. Yet for every hostile encounter, there were moments of genuine connection. Staff members who had once doubted the efficacy of radical empathy now, inspired by Maricela's example, began to share their own stories of personal breakthroughs and social awakening. They recounted the small but significant acts of everyday courage, the friendly smile offered to a guest who seemed lost, the willingness to listen to a personal grievance, the determination to set right even the smallest injustice. These recollections, shared in quiet conversations during mealtime breaks or in the hushed aftermath of a busy day, reaffirmed the idea that transformation was less about grand gestures and more about the consistent application of kindness, integrity, and unwavering conviction. The Grand Meridian, it became, was not just a hotel. It was a living testament to the power of leadership that dared to defy convention, a place where a black CEO's unwavering commitment to justice subtly, yet forcefully, redefined what true luxury entailed. While the corridors echoed with tales of former power struggles and prejudices, they now also resonated with the stories of everyday triumphs, of guests finding comfort beyond the opulent textures, of staff members discovering their voices in the chorus of progress, and of communities being slowly knit back together by the threads of empathy and mutual respect. Maricela, often seen gazing out her office window at the world beyond the towering edifice, knew that these quiet victories were just as significant as the high-profile successes that made headlines. One crisp spring morning, as sunlight gently illuminated the hotel's atrium and the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint notes of soft jazz, Maricella's phone rang. It was a call from one of the hotel's long-standing partners, a philanthropist named Evelyn Carter, whose commitment to social justice had long intersected with Maricella's own vision. Evelyn's voice was measured and kind as she expressed her admiration for the Grand Meridian's recent strides in addressing deep-rooted inequities. "Maricela," she began, "I have been following the changes in your hotel with great interest, and I must say, you are setting a powerful example for the entire industry. I believe that together we can launch a new initiative, one that not only redefines hospitality but also sets a benchmark for diversity and inclusion on a national scale." Maricela listened intently, her mind already racing with the possibilities. "I wholeheartedly agree, Evelyn," she replied. "We have reached a pivotal moment where the intersection of business excellence and social progress is undeniable. An initiative like this will not only showcase the innovative spirit of the Grand Meridian but also pave the way for a more inclusive future in hospitality." Their conversation meandered through the intricacies of policy changes, community outreach programs, and cross-industry collaborations. The call ended with a sense of united purpose, a silent acknowledgement that the seeds of change, when nurtured collectively, could flourish into movements that transcended individual achievements. In the weeks that followed, the Grand Meridian transformed into a hub of progressive dialogues and groundbreaking initiatives. Maricela organized a series of workshops, inviting experts from diverse fields to share insights on topics ranging from anti-discrimination training and inclusive service standards to the economic empowerment of marginalized communities. On one particularly memorable afternoon, a workshop on bridging cultural divides in luxury service was attended by a diverse group of participants, from seasoned managers to aspiring young professionals. Each one walked away with a renewed sense of duty and understanding. Discussion groups formed spontaneously, some even lasting late into the evening over celebratory dinners, as new ideas sparked connections and built bridges across long-held divides. Despite the evident progress, the inertia of resistance was not entirely eradicated. There were still corporate entities and individuals who grumbled behind closed doors, those who found it difficult to accept that a new era had dawned. Among them were a few figures from the traditional elite, whose discomfort with the evolving landscape manifested in subtle attempts to undermine the hotel's newly forged reputation. One such incident occurred during a high-stakes gala attended by eminent figures of finance, law, and politics. As the evening progressed, Maricela noticed discreet whispers that hinted at attempts to scrutinize her every move, to find faults in an otherwise impeccable record of innovation and hospitality. The murmurs, however, were quickly quelled when a series of unprecedented technical mishaps forced the evening's program into an improvised sequence. Maricela, ever the consummate professional, handled the disruptions with the astonishing calm of someone who had experienced many storms. With a graceful smile, she addressed the assembled guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, as with any great endeavor, moments of imperfection remind us that progress is far more valuable than relentless perfection. Let us use these challenges as an opportunity to engage, learn, and grow together." The honesty of her words, combined with the visible chill of vulnerability, turned the evening around. The gala, which might have otherwise dissolved into fragmented anger and dissent, instead evolved into a collective celebration of resilience and solidarity. In that critical moment, the guests witnessed firsthand how a leader who embraced both accountability and compassion could transform adversity into a rallying cry for unity. The following months saw the ripple effects of these initiatives stretch far beyond the confines of the Grand Meridian. Reports in business journals, social commentary in major newspapers, and even international discussions praised how one hotel had not only redefined luxury but also taken bold strides in bridging divides. The narrative was clear: a black CEO, once denigrated by prejudice, had rewritten the rules of an industry with firm resolve and visionary compassion. National conferences invited Maricela to share her insights and methodologies, and her story became a case study at prestigious leadership seminars. Yet with every accolade and public endorsement, Maricela remained humble. She never forgot that the real measure of success was in the daily interactions, each smile from a guest, every moment of genuine connection between staff and visitor, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the Grand Meridian was a beacon of hope in a world that often teetered on the brink of disillusionment. One day, several months after that fateful encounter with Sinclair, Maricela found herself revisiting the very threshold of the hotel's grand entrance. It was a moment of introspection, an opportunity to reflect on all that had transpired since that first challenge to her authority. She remembered the fear, the anger, and then the eventual understanding that transformed anger into something constructive. In her mind's eye, she replayed the myriad faces of those whom she had encountered on this tumultuous journey, the timid staff member who had learned to speak out, the disillusioned guest who had rediscovered hope in unexpected places, and even those hardened critics who, in time, yielded to the undeniable evidence of change. Every face told a story, and every story echoed a victory over the age-old chains of prejudice. Maricela knew that this was only the beginning. Her vision for the Grand Meridian was ever evolving, like the dynamism of the city it called home. With plans on the horizon to expand into communities that had historically been overlooked by the luxury hospitality sector, she envisioned a network of properties where the same core values of equality, excellence, and compassion would guide every interaction. In one such meeting with a team of architects and community leaders, she outlined her blueprint for a new facility that would serve not only as a hotel but also as a cultural center, a space that celebrated the arts, promoted dialogue on social issues, and provided opportunities for underprivileged youth. "I want our new hotel to be more than stone and glass," she told them, her voice a blend of fervor and vision. "It should be a living monument to the idea that every individual, no matter their background, deserves to experience both luxury and dignity. Our journey is not just about building hotels, it is about building environments where the human spirit is celebrated and nurtured." Her words resonated with everyone in the room, each person inspired by her passion and unyielding optimism. In that room, a shared realization blossomed, that true progress was a tapestry woven from countless threads, each effort, each act of kindness, and every moment of courage added depth and color to the masterpiece of social transformation. Yet even as this audacious future beckoned, Maricela was not oblivious to the reality that change rarely came without sacrifices. Late one rain-drenched evening, as she sat by the window in her private suite overlooking the bustling city, Maricela allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. The city lights flickered like distant beacons, reminders of both the promise and the struggle that defined her journey. Reaching for a worn family photograph resting by her bedside, a snapshot of a much younger her surrounded by kin who had once believed in a different, harsher world, she reflected on the power of holding fast to one's truth. In that quiet solitude, she resolved that every tear shed in despair would eventually be transformed into the fuel that powered her pursuit of a more just society. The following day, as the city shook off the last remnants of a storm, a surprising visitor arrived at the hotel, a former board member who had once been one of Maricela's fiercest critics. With his shoulders slumped and an air of penitent humility, he approached her in the expansive lobby. "Ms. Johnson," he began, his voice tentative and laced with regret, "I must apologize for the way I and some of my colleagues doubted your vision. I see now that our old ways were not only outdated but also a disservice to the future." His words, though belated, were a clear acknowledgement of the transformative force that Maricela had unleashed upon the hotel. The apology, simple yet genuine, was met with a gracious smile. "Every journey requires learning, and every mistake is an opportunity to grow," she replied. "I hope we can move forward together in building something that honors our shared humanity." In that exchange, an unspoken understanding bridged the gap of years of skepticism, and the conversation turned toward how the board and senior management could further adapt to the new inclusive paradigm. As time continued its relentless march, the Grand Meridian evolved into a symbol not merely of hospitality but of the reimagined fabric of society. The hotel's legacy was no longer defined solely by its opulent interiors or its prestigious clientele, it was defined by the transformative impact that one determined leader had on challenging norms and inspiring change. Maricella's story reached far corners of the nation, becoming an emblem of hope for communities long marginalized by entrenched systems of power. There were days when the challenges re-emerged, incidents of discrimination that reared their heads in subtle forms, moments when boutique guests questioned the rigor of the inclusive policies, but each time, the hotel's response was measured and empathetic. Staff and management alike were trained to see these setbacks not as failures, but as learning opportunities, vital threads in the rich tapestry of growth. One particularly transformative episode came when a visiting celebrity, known for their outspoken views on social justice, mistakenly overlooked the dedicated contributions of one of the hotel's rising talents, a young front desk manager named Tasha, whose diligence and warm smile had quietly won the hearts of countless guests. The misstep quickly became fodder for social media chatter, and the ensuing uproar could have unseated weaker establishments. Instead, Maricela took this as a moment to reaffirm the values that had always defined the Grand Meridian. In a heartfelt public address recorded and widely disseminated through multiple channels, she said, "Every member of our team is a reflection of our collective mission, a mission where we honor every individual with respect, recognition, and care. Today, we acknowledge that a moment of oversight does not diminish the brilliance of the heart and soul that Tasha represents. It is a reminder that the path to excellence is a collaborative journey, and in every slip, there is a lesson for us all." The message resonated with countless viewers, reasserting that true luxury was an amalgamation of empathy, hard work, and shared accountability. Under Maricela's leadership, the hotel continued to be a crucible for social change. Initiatives that brought together business, art, and community advocacy began to interlace with the daily operations of the Grand Meridian. An annual Day of Inclusion was instituted, a day when guests, staff, and even local residents could engage in open dialogue, cultural exhibitions, and collaborative projects that sought to bridge divides and spark innovation. On one such day, as diverse music, art, and speeches filled the courtyard, Maricela took a moment to appreciate both the struggles of the past and the promise of the future. Her eyes scanned the crowd, a vibrant mosaic of faces and backgrounds, and in that moment, she knew that every hardship, every snub, and every moment of prejudice had served as the catalyst for a far greater transformation. Yet, even in the midst of celebration and progress, there were personal dynamics that remained complex. Among these was the evolving relationship with Harold Sinclair, whose earlier confrontation had triggered so many changes. Over time, Sinclair's visits became sporadic, a reflection of the internal battles he fought between clinging to antiquated pride and accepting the new world order that Maricela represented. Occasionally, he would appear at the hotel with a forced politeness, sitting quietly in the lobby as if recounting the mysteries of his own transformation. Maricela, ever observant, took these encounters as subtle openings for dialogue. In one discreet conversation away from the public gaze, she said softly, "Mr. Sinclair, I understand that change is never easy. I once too believed that the world could be measured by rigid markers of status and entitlement. There will always be moments when we must re-examine our truths." Sinclair, his gaze downcast and reflective, nodded. It was in such rare conversations that the barriers between adversaries began to crumble, and beneath the formidable facade of old prejudices, a flicker of introspection emerged. Years passed in a continuous flow of challenge and triumph, a dance of shadows and light that wove the story of the Grand Meridian into the broader narrative of societal progress. Maricela continued to lead with a combination of steely resolve and gentle grace, aware that the journey for absolute justice was an ongoing struggle. Even as headlines chronicled her every success and setback, she kept her focus on the silent victories, a staff member overcoming past insecurities, a guest's smile of genuine gratitude, the small adjustments in everyday operations that cumulatively created an atmosphere of inclusiveness. On a luminous summer afternoon, when the hotel was bathed in the golden light of progress and hope, Maricela received a letter that would mark a new chapter in her odyssey. The handwritten note, penned in elegant cursive on cream-colored stationery, was from a young woman named Aisha, a bright, aspiring entrepreneur who had once been inspired by Maricella's public address. In the letter, Aisha recounted her own struggles with identity and acceptance, thanking Maricela not only for her exemplary leadership but also for the deeply personal impact of her story. The words in the letter were simple yet charged with raw emotion, a reminder that one person's resolve could echo through the lives of many. Maricela, moved to tears, knew that beyond the boardrooms and the glitz of business triumphs, the real legacy lay in the ripple effects of inspiration that spanned generations. Aisha's words became a cherished memory, reinforcing that the path toward equality was paved with individual stories, each one a testament to the transformative power of courage and authenticity. As the era progressed into a new chapter of personal and professional reinvention, Maricela made it a point to continuously educate herself and those around her. She attended seminars, read voraciously on the topics of social justice and historical reforms, and even engaged in quiet, reflective conversations with mentors from diverse corners of the world. Her management style, firm yet nurturing, became a living example of how modern leadership could harmonize profitability with principled action. She often remarked, "In business, like in life, every setback is an invitation to rethink, remold, and ultimately, reinvent ourselves." These gentle reminders, shared during late evening meetings with her executive team, fostered an environment where creativity and conscientiousness walked hand in hand. One particularly poignant moment occurred during an intimate dinner with a group of emerging leaders from the hospitality industry. As they sat around a long table adorned with simple yet elegant centerpieces, one young woman voiced a deep-seated concern: what if the change we strive for is met with endless resistance? How do we continue to move forward when old prejudices are so entrenched? Maricela's response was thoughtful and laced with firm conviction. Each act of resistance, each closed door and every biased remark is not a defeat but a challenge. It is an invitation to demonstrate our strength, resilience, and unwavering commitment to our principles. Change is not instantaneous, it is a slow and persistent tide. And every ripple, every small act of inclusion, contributes to the reshaping of our world. The words hung in the air as a beacon of hope and guidance, encouraging each future leader to carry forward the torch of progress even in the darkest hours. At the Grand Meridian, time became a tapestry of interconnected narratives, of sorrow turned into triumph, of challenges that spurred innovative solutions, and of a legacy that transcended the mere physicality of a grand building. Maricela's enduring presence in the hotel, always visible in quiet moments, engaging warmly with guests or offering support to a staff member in need, was a silent reminder that leadership was not about authority, but about empathy, perseverance, and the effortless act of believing in the possibility of transformation. In every corridor, in every carefully designed space, lay the echoes of her journey, a journey that had begun with a single resolute act at the front desk and had blossomed into a movement that redefined an entire industry. In the twilight of her career, as Maricela began to contemplate the legacy she would leave behind, she organized one final, grand celebration at the Grand Meridian. The event was a mélange of nostalgia and optimism, a retrospective of the struggles and triumphs that had defined the hotel's journey, interspersed with visions of a future where every individual was truly valued. As luminaries from every corner of her storied path gathered in the magnificent ballroom, Maricela took a moment to address those assembled. Today, we honor not just the victories, but every moment of our journey, a journey filled with challenges, setbacks, and unexpected twists that made us who we are. We have transformed every obstacle into a stepping stone for progress. Let our story be a reminder that true change arises when we dare to stand firm in our truth and, in doing so, open the door for others to do the same. The profound simplicity of her words stirred a deep emotion in every heart present, each person understanding that their individual struggles were threads in the grand tapestry of collective progress. In the days, months, and years that followed that final celebration, the Grand Meridian Hotel remained a living, breathing symbol of change. Its corridors continued to buzz with stories of everyday acts of kindness. Its rooms were filled not only with guests seeking luxury but with individuals eager to be part of a transformative narrative. Maricella's legacy, meticulously woven through countless acts of courage and empathy, became a blueprint for future generations, a testament to the idea that leadership, when infused with authenticity, has the power to reshape institutions and spark revolutions. As twilight settled over the city one brilliant autumn evening, a new challenge arose. A local regulator, misinformed by outdated assumptions and skeptical of progressive initiatives, demanded that the hotel cease certain inclusive practices, citing archaic standards that had little relevance in the modern era. The news spread through the local community like wildfire, igniting debates in cafes, boardrooms, and even living rooms. Some feared that the progressive wave that had transformed the Grand Meridian might be halted by bureaucratic inertia. Yet, Maricela was resolute. Gathering her most trusted advisors, she set forth a plan to not only contest the regulators' demands legally but to use the situation as a platform to argue for reform. With an amalgamation of legal challenges, public relations campaigns, and heartfelt testimonies from staff and guests alike, the hotel mounted an unwavering defense of its values. The ensuing legal battle was long and arduous, replete with moments of uncertainty and setbacks that threatened to plunge the hotel into temporary disarray. However, the collective voice of the community, supported by influential figures who recognized the hotel's contributions to social progress, ultimately swayed the tide. The regulator was forced to acknowledge the outdated nature of their demands, and the Grand Meridian emerged not only unscathed but emboldened, a reminder to all that true progress, driven by courage and vision, would always trump regressive policies. As the legal dust settled and a renewed sense of purpose permeated every hallway of the hotel, Maricela took one final walk through the now iconic lobby. Every step was a quiet celebration of victories hard-earned and obstacles defied. Looking around, she saw in every gleaming surface and every kind smile a vivid reflection of a dream realized, a dream where every individual, regardless of their background, was met with dignity, respect, and the promise of excellence. In that moment, she silently vowed that while the struggle for justice was never truly over, each day was a new opportunity to write a page in the continuing story of transformation. The Grand Meridian Hotel's saga had become a living legend, a narrative of resilience, innovation, and the transformative power of a leader who understood that change begins at the very door one dares to open. And as the city lights flickered softly in the evening haze, Maricela's heart brimmed with quiet satisfaction. She had built not merely a hotel, but a sanctuary where every room, every smile, and every interaction was a bold statement to the world, that true luxury lay not in opulence alone, but in the unyielding human spirit to rise above prejudice and build wonders, even when the door seemed firmly closed. In that quiet, resolute moment, standing beneath the graceful arc of the hotel's grand entrance, Maricela Johnson knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that the legacy of the Grand Meridian would endure, etched in the hearts of every guest, every employee, and every soul that had ever dared to dream of a better tomorrow. And with that realization, the story of a black CEO who had once been denied a room in what was supposed to be her own sanctuary transformed into the timeless account of how one woman made everyone regret the closed doors of discrimination, instantly and irrevocably.